welcome to the Hockey Podcast. I am Luke Lipinski.
And I am Doug Cannon.
This week's show, we examine the fury of Patrick Roy, break down the new NHL rule changes, and jump to conclusions after the first week.
We will also take a look at the loving fans of New Jersey and how they embrace change.
All that and quite possibly more. Let's drop the puck on episode 19. 2013-14 NHL season is officially in full swing. I think it's safe for us to jump to a few conclusions, Doug. Toronto's going 82-0.
I'm a Flea fan, and I can't believe I looked in it. We were in first place.
That's how you know it's.
And notice I said we, like I have everything to do with it.
Oh, I saw you take a couple face-offs for him, so that's fine. Pretty much can go ahead and say Patrick Roy is going to be the most entertaining coach in hockey.
Yeah, he might be taking over for Charlie Sheen on that Fox show. Fox or TNT? Anger management?
Just the idea of Charlie Sheen coaching a hockey team.
That'd be fun. Well,
intrigued.
His brother did it.
If they could just, and he did a great job.
That was a great series.
Credit to HBO. The first night of the NHL season, I'm watching hockey all night. I go out, I come home. It's like midnight. Mighty Ducks is on. How can you not watch Mighty Ducks at midnight? I mean, that's when that movie was meant to be watched. So here we are. Hockey season is going. Patrick Roy and Bruce Boudreau get into it. 24 hours into Patrick Roy's coaching career?
Yep. And the beauty of it was it was just his fiery temper.
In the game they won 6-1.
6-1. It's like, you know what, dude? Just take the win. Be proud. First game, NHL, head coach.
No,
you did it.
Don't. Keep doing what you're doing, because I'm convinced his head's going to explode on the bench in one of these games, and that's entertaining for people.
Well, he almost broke the glass.
Yeah. Yeah, he did.
The partition between the home and away bench, he was banging on it.
And it was moving. Blah, 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 blah. Blah, 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 blah.
And it was like on a 45-degree angle heading for Bruce Boudreau's head.
Everybody's yelling back and forth. I think it was Corey Perry that was yelling at, and he was yelling at Ben Lovejoy because he thought Ben Lovejoy took liberties with Nathan MacKinnon with just a few seconds left in that game, which obviously wasn't in question. Thought there was a knee-to-knee hit, and then obviously Bruce Boudreau is going to start yelling. They're yelling back and forth, and all of a sudden the glass starts moving towards Boudreau, and he just stops yelling, and he's just moving away from the glass.
Well, that plexiglass is heavy, man.
Yeah.
It's those sheets, I think somebody told me they're like 100 pounds each. Because you figure it's a 4x8 sheet, and it's a good quarter to maybe a half-inch thick.
Yeah, pretty thick.
It's pretty thick stuff.
I mean, that's the stuff that guys get run into at full speed, coming down the side, trying to make a play or whatever, and you go into the corner, and two 250-pound players hit each other, and they don't move. Patrick Roy's anger moves one.
Well, in all fairness, it's just a sheet of glass that drops down into a slot. There's no real reinforcement to hold it into place like a frame or anything. But I've never seen that before, where it's just like bent over.
So what did Bruce Boudreau called him? Bush League?
Yeah, he called him Bush League.
And Patrick Roy called Bruce Boudreau. This is the next day when he's had time to cool off after his 6-1 win. He called him a liar. So
liar, liar, your pants are on fire.
Pretty much. It's been made that much better by Patrick Roy's French accent.
Oh, yeah, Boudreau told him he needed to grow up.
That's probably not going to happen.
No, I think you're going to see more of his temper. We've seen his temper on the ice when he played, when things didn't go the way he thought they should go.
This is what happens when you make a goalie a coach.
You've got that goalie mentality, and it's like you just don't know where it's going to go.
Remember, did you ever play Blades of Steel, the old 8-bit Nintendo game? Every time you scored, the goalie would just wave his arms up in the air angrily at his teammates. So that's what I think of when I think of Patrick Roy. Like, that was just the default setting because this was one of the early hockey games. But
right.
Yeah, that was pretty entertaining. What a great way to start the year. Colorado has looked good through 2 games, but they've looked good, and I think they've they've probably exceeded expectations, but they've been what you and I said they were going to be, in that they're very fun to watch.
There's a lot of talent on that team. That talent just last year just didn't perform. And now we're seeing a little, temperate. It's 2 games in.
Everything small sample size that we're talking about.
Right.
Except obviously Toronto's winning.
We're kind of seeing the fact that young talent's going to blossom, and that young talent's going to give the Avs fans a lot of entertaining hockey.
Yeah, Nathan MacKinnon already 3 assists through the first 2 games. He's looked good.
Yeah, that was a lousy draft choice, huh?
Yeah.
They're doing what with their first pick? Oh my goodness, how could they take him?
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, look, whether Colorado makes the playoffs this season or not, they're going to be fun to watch.
Oh, yeah.
And as we said when we did the previews of all the teams, Semyon Varlamov now has Patrick Waugh as his coach, who I don't think you want to get angry.
No.
He's got Francois Allaire as his specific personal goalie coach, and then he's got Jean-Sébastien Giguère, who's basically a coach at this point.
Right.
I mean, he could still play, but as his backup. So, if he's ever going to succeed, this is the year for him to succeed. Through 2 games, he's given up 2 goals, and I don't want to get too stat-heavy here just because it's so early, but they're going to be fun to watch. They are a team, like I said, if the Coyotes or the Penguins aren't on, I'm watching Colorado.
So let's look real quick before we move on to the next topic, but let's look at the Atlantic Division. Toronto's on top. Didn't expect it, but it's okay. The Metro, Pittsburgh's on top, to be expected.
With half their team gone already.
With half their team gone.
Before they even played a game, Chris Letang out long-term.
I know he's on my fantasy team. Thanks for a reminder.
James Neal out, quote, indefinitely. He's on my team. And Thomas Vokoun out for basically the whole regular season, too. That's a good start.
That's a great start. St. Louis leading Central. San Jose leading the Pacific. No shockers there.
No, I mean, we can get more into it later. But
I didn't want to go. This is like a surface glance.
Okay.
I see these teams in first place right now in their division. I'm not shocked.
Any of them staying in first place at the end of the year when we do this show?
No.
We'll probably do a couple shows between now and the end of the year, but at the end of the year, Pittsburgh's going to stay in first place. How dare you? I throw this pen at you. It's your pen, but that makes it that much more ironic. All right, so fighting came to the forefront. The one hand, it's like this is a tired topic. On the other hand, every time something happens and all the people that cover sports but don't really follow hockey jump in and with their opinions.
Right.
All of a sudden,
people
fighting
that
is
have
the worst thing
never
ever.
Played hockey.
Yes. So,
like the ESPN guys that only follow basketball, baseball, and football. Oh, man, they should this. Really?
I just know there's a lot of people that it's the people that when something really amazing happens in a hockey game, they don't bring it up.
Mm-hmm.
But if there's something bad that happens,
we've got to talk about it.
Yeah. So, whoever it is that's weighing in, a lot of people.
Okay, well, what kicked off the flurry this time?
So George Parros, please never use the word flurry around me. George Parros and Colton Orr fighting opening night.
Or who?
It's going to be a long show. This pen is not going to be in my hand by the end of this show. They get in a fight. Parros, scary situation, lands face first on the ice. Not really because of a punch. It's just you're playing on ice.
Which is why they brought in the helmet rule this year. They weren't really worried about a player being injured during a fisticuff. What they're worried about is exactly what happened to George Parros. Lost his footing, kind of get wrapped up in a wrestling hug or whatever, and he falls, and he hits his head on the ice. Unfortunately for Parros, it was his face, not the back of his head.
Yeah.
And that's why they want those helmets on. So if a guy falls, it's not his bare head hitting the surface. He's at least got his helmet on.
So still going to hurt, but it's not going to be nearly as bad.
Well, it's got padding on the inside. It's going to hopefully, reduce the effects of a concussion or maybe even prevent a concussion. But that's the whole point behind all that is, let them fight.
Yeah, I don't know how far you want to go into this, but fighting it's part of the game. I heard somebody talking the other day that made a very good point. They said they were looking way back in like the early days of the hockey news. They're talking like the 60s that they were talking about. And the same debate was going on. Fighting's not getting taken out of hockey. It's just not. Unless somebody is seriously hurt in an actual fight because of the fight. They're on ice. There's blades. It's high speed. He could have easily had the same thing happen to him, cutting across the middle and just
well, I semi-joked about it when the news came out. I said, well, what are we going to do now? We're going to take the visors off and everybody's going to have to wear a cage so that if he falls face first, he doesn't hurt his face?
Yeah.
That's the next step, right? That everybody's going to have to wear cages.
I just think the NHL has done so much to promote safety. There's only so much you can do.
Well, let's look at it. How many people have been hurt by a blade?
I can think of 2 off the top of my head. I'm sure there's more, but I can think of 2.
We have nets now around the ends of the rink because, unfortunately, a young girl lost her life. A puck came over the glass and fatally injured her. But it's like those things just are so far apart that they don't happen on a regular basis. They really, really don't.
I don't know what you can do. I mean, what rule can you put in? Are you really going to take out fighting? Like you said, are you going to put cages on everybody's helmet? The players won't go for that. I mean, we're just now getting to the point where the players are getting a visor on, and I think that's as far as it, A, ever is going to go, and B, really ever needs to go.
I'll ask you a question, because this is how I think.
Who else are you going to ask?
How often do we see fights?
Well, if it's Toronto, at least once a game.
But I mean, for the most part, and I watched the Coyotes home opener. The first 12 minutes of that game was end to end. There was no whistle of any kind. No offside, no icing. I mean, it was just back and forth, back and forth,
no break
back and
at
forth.
All.
And to me, that's where the game is really developing too. I mean, there's certain teams that'll get grindy and have a few fisticuffs, but for the most part, I just finished watching the first period of the Philadelphia Carolina. It was a great period of hockey.
I don't think fighting is nearly as big as it was 20 years ago, and I think the
Marty McSorley role doesn't exist anymore.
Exactly what I was going to say. The guys that are in the league just to fight
doesn't exist.
I don't want to keep using Toronto as an example, but they have two players on their roster that are 85% of their value comes from fighting. They're the only team I can think of that has two, and I can probably only think of 8 or 9 other teams that even have one that can do nothing but fight.
Right.
Because, and this is just the evolution of the game, like you said, there's too much speed, there's too much skill, there's too much end-to-end. We had those rules put in a while back to eliminate clutching and grabbing and to free up offense. You can't waste a roster spot on a guy that can only fight.
Right. I mean, if I'm a head coach, I really don't want that guy. You know what? Most hockey players are pretty tough. Most hockey players play by the code, and if they have to fight, they will fight. And I mean, geez Louise, I mean, it's about winning now. And if you don't win as a head coach, you're not going to be on that bench for very much longer.
Just look at Dallas every 5 or 6 months.
It's just not going to happen. I mean, like the Phil Kessel incident in the preseason. He did the right thing. He just skate away. But then,
he skated away swinging and spearing.
Yeah, but I mean,
jousting.
Again, the first 2 steps were the right decision. The third and fourth step were the wrong, because then he turned around and tried to tomahawk Scott with his stick. There are other ways to avoid that.
Yeah, well, and I think one of them is fighting. I mean, if you don't let the players police themselves, then you put it all on the officials.
Oh, jeez.
And I knew I would get that reaction from you. But even a good official, they can only do so much. Look, there's going to be hits in hockey. If you're not going to let them fight, the hits are just going to get harder. And what's the ref going to do? Throw everybody out? It's the way everybody has grown up playing. Again, you don't have just a goon out there that just fights and then leaves and just fights and gets thrown out. You have guys, whoever, Rick Nash, Scott Hartnell from Philadelphia, who you were just talking about, that can fight for themselves. Shane Doan could fight for himself. I mean, you have big hockey players that their goal isn't to get in a fight, but if they have to, they can.
Listen, there's guys on the ice, a.k.a. me, that will be in the front of the net or in a corner with a guy, and I'll clutch and grab because I know the ref can't see me doing it, or I'll give him an elbow because I know.
Problem.
But I want to stir him up.
You're also a defenseman.
I want to stir him up. I want him to get emotional. Well, take that and apply it to the NHL at the speed and the strength that those guys play at.
All those people watching, millions of dollars on the line. And hockey's just a frustrating game. I mean, even the best goal scorers don't even score one a game.
Right.
So you're walking around getting hacked. You're skating around, people are hacking your wrists, the stick every time you go to shoot. There's going to be pushing and shoving. It's going to lead to fighting every once in a while. But generally speaking, when there's a fight, that kind of ends it for the game.
Right.
The smart coaches pull their players aside, and whether it comes in the intermission or whatever, and they say, look, we're not here to fight. We're here to win. So take care of whatever you have to do, and then let's just get back to playing hockey. So if you take fighting out, you don't have that.
You're listening to The Hockey Podcast. Feel free to email comments or questions to the show at our email address, thehockeypodcast@gmail.com.
So the no-tuck rule is officially in effect. We haven't seen anybody get penalized for this yet, right? We talked about this a little while
but
ago.
I watched a game where I saw a jersey tucked. I'm trying to remember what game it was, and I'm like, I don't see any referee talking to any coaches. I don't see any arms going up. I'm like,
You think it's going to turn into like golf where fans can call in and just call like the commissioner's office and be like, hey, this guy's jersey's tucked in? That's the dumbest thing about golf. You know, if I'm
a
just
fan can
watching
call
golf,
in and complain?
yeah, they can call in and be like, oh, he didn't wash the ball properly, or he did something weird with the grass.
Oh, they did that with Tiger once.
Yes, more than once. This is why
That's
golf
ridiculous. That's
Don't even get me
ridiculous.
into my whole golf is not a sport thing because I'm terrible at golf, so it sounds like I'm just bitter, but stuff like that.
But we know there was a few rule changes. We'll get to the main one in a second. I know we've touched on it briefly before. We've got the goaltender pads being reduced.
Which I love. I absolutely love it.
I haven't seen any real difference.
I mean, scoring, it's too early to tell, but you look at the footage from the 80s and the 70s and earlier than that, even the early 90s, and the goalies just look like normal people.
Mm-hmm.
And then you watch them, especially in like the early 2000s, they look like couches. Like, I mean, they just have cushions just strapped to their body.
But the one thing I do like on how the league handled it is that they created a formula so that the pads are proportional to the player wearing them.
Yeah. Yeah, no, if you're big, you should get to wear big pads.
Right.
But it was just getting out of control. And
so there's that one, and then I don't know if they're doing it, but the new nets.
Shallower nets, which I've actually seen a few specific plays where that's already helped. I like that one a lot because you're not radically changing the game at all. If you're just a average, typical sports fan and you go to a hockey game, I don't even think you notice that the nets look different. If you're a hockey fan, you know. I mean, you know what nets look like.
Is Wayne Gretzky sitting in L.A. going, why didn't they have that when I played?
Yeah, he probably is, but then everybody around him is pointing to the goalies he was facing when he played, and he's like, all right, it all evens out. But I do like this because you can throw the passes out in front of the net. So a creative offensive player behind the net now has more room to throw a pass out in front.
That's what I was referring to.
We got the whole situation that kind of developed over the last couple of years where defensemen will purposely shoot it wide from the point for it to come off the boards and be a nice rebound. Now there's even more room for that. So I don't know. And somebody else pointed out that because of this, now players can get even closer to the goalies. So now the goalies are going to be more upset, which ultimately will lead to more Patrick Waugh-like situations.
Well, and one thing that doesn't affect play that I liked is that the top the tubing's smaller too.
Okay.
You know, instead of, I forget what the official diameter of the piping is, but they reduced that. And then when you look down on the net, it flows out, so the overhead cams can see the corners.
That's good.
And I think that's really good for video review to be able to see that space down below. I thought I really liked the design. Whoever came with it was really, really thinking. Reducing the diameter of the bar, I thought gives you more space. But you're not creating a bigger frame.
You're not opening the goal.
No, but you're creating space.
You're creating more scoring chances without actually affecting the integrity of the game.
I thought it was brilliant.
The NHL has been so good at this stuff of when they add an innovation, they implement it quickly. We don't have to. They didn't talk about this, and we're not going to see it for years. They talked about it, and then we saw it, start of the season. Mm-hmm. So not only do they come up with these innovations, but they implement them quickly. Generally, safety is the main concern. It isn't with that. I mean, you're just talking about trying to add more offensive creativity, which is great for the game.
But the other thing that a lot of fans don't understand is a lot of these rule changes they implement at the AHL level for like a season.
I also think is smart.
And they analyze it. And then every summer, they take the data and they have their R&D camp with GMs and stuff. And then they go to the GMs and say, well, this looks good, that looks good. But they at least take it and implement it for a season to see how it actually does affect the game. Like, remember they did the wide blue lines down in the AHL, thinking that might be something they would implement, and didn't go over very well.
No, but I mean, there was a time not that long ago where you couldn't even complete a 2-line pass,
right?
And that was a stoppage of play. And just watch a game from 15 years ago, and then watch a game now. It's so much quicker now. Not only between the whistles when they're actually playing, but then when there's a stoppage of play, I mean, they hustle down there, drop the puck, and they just go. And there's not as many stoppages.
I was listening to a game the other night, and there was an icing call. And right after the icing call, the coach called the timeout. And my wife is like, why would they do that? I said, well, he's got to rest those players because one of the new rules a few seasons back was that if you purposely iced, you couldn't do a line change, which is like way back when. That's why you did ice the puck, so the guys that were tired could get off.
Which actually is delay of game. I mean, as opposed to like the puck accidentally going off the stick and into the crowd.
Disguised as icing, but the whole point is the league recognized that and said, okay, fine, ice the puck. That's okay. Puck comes back to your zone, but the same guys on the ice stay. So now a coach has to burn a timeout to rest those guys.
You only get one timeout.
And you only get one timeout in a game.
Speaking of icing, hybrid icing I think is going to be the most controversial of these. I mean, the tuck thing is controversial on the surface.
I don't think it's going to be that controversial because it's very clear cut.
See, I hear what you're saying, and
because the tie goes to the defensive player.
I think.
Okay, let's explain it to the listeners. Let's explain it to the listeners. Okay. The linesman has to make a call by the face-off dot.
All right, so hold on. Just let me just put it into my pessimistic view on this. The official has to make a judgment call based on an imaginary line.
Right.
So that right there, there's 3 strikes.
Okay. But if I got 2 players skating for the puck and they both reach the dot at the same time, it's icing. Tie goes to the D.
And that's it. Yep.
And that's it. So there's not a whole lot of judgment. If the offensive player is ahead of the defensive player, then he waives it.
Yeah. Don't get me wrong. I like the rule. I think it's smart. There's no need to have players getting tangled up and ankles getting broken over an icing play that probably would have been icing anyway. There's no need for it.
Okay, let's bring it home. My poor kid, he had a game today, and they were on a power play. The other team iced it.
Okay.
He pulled up, and his coaches are screaming at him, get the puck, bring it back. We're on the power play. The clock's ticking type of thing. But there wasn't a scorekeeper, so
that's good.
It wasn't reflected on the board that there was a penalty, and that's just game awareness. But you don't have to worry about that anymore.
No, and they generally have scorekeepers in the NHL too.
So yeah, I know.
That shouldn't be an issue.
It's just that icing is very clear cut now. And unless people are going to get hurt.
It was more clear cut before, but I agree something had to be done because there's just no reason. Again, you can never eliminate injuries from hockey, but you can minimize them a little bit. And this, to me, minimizes it.
Is there any sport that you can eliminate injuries?
Baseball.
You can't eliminate. Come on. That's like that town in Canada that has soccer league, then they don't have a ball.
That's good.
They have to imagine it.
Just participation trophy.
They have to imagine it.
Is everybody in the league?
Oh, this is the greatest.
Yeah,
everybody's a winner. Every goalie has a shutout. Every kid has a hat trick. I mean, it's a true story. Look it up.
Imaginary soccer.
Imaginary soccer. They actually play soccer on a field without a ball.
Is this like in Toronto where they have imaginary Stanley Cups every year?
It's somewhere. Oh wow, that was good. I like that one. No, it's in Ontario.
Okay. Yeah, see, there you go.
I like the hybrid icing. I really think it's
I like the hybrid icing
change.
But I think a year from now it will be better because my concern is that there's going to be they're not skating over the dot. Maybe they have to put a line in there at some point.
We had this conversation before we even started recording about something else in society that when it's implemented, and it was first implemented, it will take time to perfect.
Well, that's fine.
And to me, with just saying tie goes to D, makes it easy.
You just like it because the tie goes to the defenseman. You've played
it always should
your whole life. Yeah, okay. You would like it going the other way too. I like it in principle, and I do think it will ultimately be for the better of the game. But my point is, of all of these new rules, it's the only one that could stir up some controversy. If we get to a playoff game and the ref is like, okay, it's too close, it's not who gets past the line first. It's going to be if it's too close to call and they decide that they are going to have to touch the puck, and one player holds up because he thinks the play is going to be done.
No, if it's a tie, it goes to the D. There's no...
we'll see how this plays out.
Yeah. But one last thing, though.
You know, have you watched any Penguins over too? That's what's going to hurt.
Have you watched any Capital games yet?
Oh yeah.
Has Ovi got his yellow laces on? Because I haven't watched one yet.
I can't see him. He's moving too fast.
Yeah, he is pretty quick.
I noticed that his jersey is untucked.
Well, see, and that's that whole uniform thing. I'm just waiting to see what's going to happen.
Ovi's going to have a ridiculous year. It's just he's so dialed in for the Olympics.
Yeah.
And he's already got 4 goals in 3 games. The power plays, I mean, score every power play. If you were playing the Capitals and you put them on the power play, just concede the goal and
just move on, save everybody a heartache.
And you still get an extra 2 minutes to try and get that goal back if you just concede the goal.
So and then let's go back to the hybrid icing and some of these rule changes. The other thing I like about all the NHL and how they implement is the fact that it makes the game better.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, the hybrid icing, we're going to prevent injuries, hopefully, but it also helps with the flow.
Yeah, it's another one of those, let's just hurry the game along. And not that we're cutting the actual time of the game down. This is what they've done so well. All the stuff around the peripherals of the game, they've managed to trim down.
Mm-hmm.
So time between stoppages and play have been trimmed down. The extra area around the side of the net, the post, that's been trimmed down. But the actual goal mouth hasn't been trimmed down. The 60 minutes of hockey haven't been trimmed down. It's just, it makes for a more streamlined game. It was already, in my opinion, the best sport on earth, and it was already the fastest pace. There's no debating that.
Right.
And now it's even faster, and it's better. And the other rule that we didn't talk about, the visors on the helmets. If you've played, make sure I get the wording right here. If you've played less than 25 NHL games when this season started, you're wearing a visor.
Right.
So ultimately, that means that 10 years from now, everybody's going to be wearing a visor.
Yeah, the attrition's got to be quicker than that, though. You think 10 years?
Well, I figure at that point, Solani will only be 55, so he'll still be in the league. Although he wears a visor, so I guess we're okay.
What do you wear when you play?
I still wear a shield, but that's because I play in adult leagues where people just swing their
a
sticks
full
around.
cage?
Yeah. I went to the visor, got 2 hockey sticks to the face within the span of, 2 or 3 months?
I went to a cage, to a visor. Everybody called me Ovechkin because I didn't realize it when I bought it. It was smoked.
Nice.
But I wore that for the longest time, and then it broke.
Wait, they were calling you Ovechkin because of how you played or because of your
Oh,
visor?
no, dude, I'm a defenseman. I can't score. Are you
All right.
kidding? I don't even have a shot. But anyways, the visor broke. So
But the tie goes to you. Go ahead.
So I take the visor off because it broke.
Okay.
Right? And then I played without anything.
Yeah, that's
it is so beautiful. I mean, it is just when I did that, I went, now I know why the guys do it.
Well, when I played in that game last year where it was with former NHL players that knew what they were doing, I played with nothing on my face, which was partially terrifying because they all can actually shoot the puck. But also, I didn't have to worry about one of them high-sticking me in the face.
Right.
So it was fun. It was great. And then I put the cage back on next time I went out and played in adult league, and I felt like I was in jail.
Well, yeah, my biggest adult story related to that real quick is that I'll never forget it. I go in the corner, and I look over my shoulder, and this guy's coming down on me. So I go to make a move. He's a tripod. He doesn't know how to stop. So what did he use to stop?
You?
Me.
That's how it works.
That's where I can see where you might want to wear a cage.
Yeah. No, it's strictly because
and
of
he was about 50 pounds heavier than me.
recklessness. Yeah, well, those are the guys that can't skate usually. Also, everybody's 50 pounds heavier than you, so that's not really
true.
fair. But so visors on the helmets,
It's a good thing.
We knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I personally...
Now because of George Peros, everybody will have a cage.
Yeah. No, I don't think we're going there for another... I mean, Solani will be 85 before we get to that point. You're tuned into the Hockey Podcast. Follow us on Twitter @HockeyPodcast for even more hockey news.
#do it.
Final segment, news and notes. Lots of news and notes. That's what's great about doing the podcast during the regular season now.
That's right. We got lots.
News and notes during the off season, we had to just go to local rinks and stir up some controversy.
And talk about Sochi.
Yeah. Hey, that was a good podcast.
That was
I stand by that. We're re-releasing that in early February for the listening audience.
For all of you that don't know where Sochi is, it's not close to Moscow.
No, it's not. Closer to us, actually, and we're in
You can
southwestern
go water
US.
skiing on the Black Sea if you want to go to Sochi.
Are we going to re-release all these podcasts in like a box set someday?
Yeah.
Is Courtney Love going to have the rights to it?
No.
Okay. All right. Because she seems to have the rights to everybody's music.
I like Courtney's music.
She made music?
Yeah.
That's a whole different...
Band Hole.
Yeah, I know who they are.
Come on, you're from Seattle.
Oh, I know who they are.
I love that
I'm
band.
not a Courtney Love fan.
Oh, come on.
No, I'm not.
Her music's good.
Disagree. Calgary Flames hosting the Vancouver Canucks tonight. That right there says it all. Calgary Flames are hosting a hockey game tonight.
After, it's been less than 3 months. 3 months when the Elbow River flooded its banks and water was up 8-9 rows.
Oh, the pictures were terrifying.
I mean, the Saddle Dome was underwater, and they've got it all cleaned up
and ready to go.
And they're playing for their home opener today.
That is commitment. You have to give it to the people of Calgary, and also because that team is terrible, so they're committed to a bad team.
That also says a ton about the Flames organization.
Oh yeah,
I know they've been struggling on the ice, and we've commented in past episodes about it.
Rich history though, and they'll get back.
And they'll get back, right? But I mean, to work that hard to get that rink ready for their home opener today, that's huge. Less than 3 months, and I mean, and water damage, man. You're a homeowner. It's the worst.
Cannot even imagine.
It is the worst.
I mean, we saw the pictures. It was just brutal. And Calgary, look, through 2 games, they're 1-0-1. By the time you hear this, they'll have done something against Vancouver, but they look solid in their first couple games. I mean, it's a rebuilding year, so the standards are lower, obviously. Right. But anytime you can pick up a few wins, anytime some of these young players can kind of establish themselves as potentially cornerstones for the franchise moving forward, you know, Calgary really has nothing to lose this season. But it is cool to see them getting to play in their home arena where they should be able to start their home part of the schedule. And they're hosting Vancouver, who is not starting Roberto Luongo, so this will be fun. Eddie Lack gets his first start. And
so then you move over a province. And
oh, hold on. We're not done with Vancouver.
Oh, no.
You got to assume Eddie Lack. I mean, let's just make the prediction here.
All
he has a good start here, right?
Right,
and at some point, Luongo has another bad one, and then it's just all of this spiraling out of control. It's my favorite storyline every year.
But we got a different coach.
Yeah, but you got the same media and the same fans who are just hungry for a winner.
You just don't like Lou.
I love Lou. I'm a huge Roberto Luongo fan. I think he's handled that whole situation, at least up until this year, where training camp's going. He's like, I'm not sure I can play. But the whole season last year and the year before, no, Luongo's been hilarious. Did you see the tweet that he sent out?
No.
October 1st, like midnight. Welcome to October, or as I like to call it, how did that go in? It's just fantastic.
And Torts, he's in rare form already.
Yeah.
2 games in.
I cannot wait till Vancouver plays Colorado. I Tortorella and Patrick Waugh, this is going to be the greatest game ever. We're still a little ways off, but I'm looking forward to that game. So that's Vancouver. Teemu Selanne playing what is supposedly his final game in Winnipeg tonight.
Well, this is supposed to be his final season.
I think it will be his final season. I do think that.
Well, if somebody wants, I'm not going to do it, but if you go to hockeydb.com,
I'll do it.
And look up his numbers as a rookie in Winnipeg.
I'm not doing that.
It's
70 goals.
I mean,
now I have to know.
I mean, Selanne is just one of those premier players, and it's like you don't want him to hang up the skates.
No, I mean
you just don't. You don't want him to leave the game.
They should induct him into the Hall of Fame the second he takes his skates off after the last game. They should all be standing there, handing him some sort of
right. We shouldn't have
puck.
To do a whole Twitter campaign like we did to get Motorhead into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Just unlace the skates, and he's in the Hockey Hall of Fame.
You get one guess how many goals Teemu Selanne had in the 92-93 season. As a rookie, how many goals did he have?
He had 60-something, didn't he?
76 goals.
76, okay. As a rookie.
And 56 assists.
Right.
You know, the 132-point rookie season, it's not real popular anymore.
And then in 96.
Okay, 109 points.
With?
51 goals, 58 assists.
With
Anaheim.
In 1996.
Yeah, 96-97 season.
Yeah.
He's been in Anaheim for a while, but he also had that.
Well, the point I'm getting is the franchise traded him.
Oh, well, yeah. That's his numbers actually after that first year in Winnipeg. He had a lot of injury issues.
Yeah, he's just a good player, though, dude. I'm sorry.
That was 20 years ago.
And you watch him now, and he's 40, and he hasn't lost a step. Although I did read where the organization is going to try to temper his schedule.
Yeah, no, that's smart.
So he doesn't get hurt.
Look, in 2010-11, he had 80 points in 73 games. And how many people really break the 80-point barrier anymore?
They don't.
They really don't. I mean, if he's healthy, Crosby does it. Stamkos is good for 50-plus goals every year, so 82-game season, he gets there. Ovechkin gets there. If Malkin feels like being Malkin, he gets there. Maybe Tavares gets there. There's your 5 guys.
Right.
And then a couple guys bump in every year, whether it's St. Louis or Eric Stahl or whoever. But for Solani to do that, it had to be 40 years old. I don't know. You're right. He's not somebody you ever want to see retire.
No, he's just one of those guys. Please stay in the game. You know, it was the same thing with Gretzky. I don't want you to leave the game.
Yeah.
You know, but so then.
Well, that's just
speaking of rookies.
Yeah. Now the rookies I'm going to talk about as being impressive
because this draft don't
seem very impressive anymore.
Was one of the best.
Not against 132 points. Yeah, it was one of the best. A couple of the guys that have stood out very early on. I think the Calder race this year is going to be just phenomenal. Nathan McKinnon, number 1 overall pick.
Mm-hmm.
As we mentioned, 3 assists in his first 2 games, but just looks good. I mean, statistically, you can't pick up anything on 2 or 3 games, but he looks solid. He looks like he's going to be a part of that offense, which is going to score goals.
Mm-hmm.
Thomas Hertl, San Jose.
I'm sorry.
Something funny about Thomas Hertl?
Every time you say Thomas Hertl, I think of Dana Carvey and the Master of Disguise in the scene.
I don't know why you think of that movie.
Turtle.
Yeah, thanks.
That's why.
I just think Teenage Mutant Ninja Hurdles.
That makes me laugh.
Well, he looks good too, and he's skating on the line with Joe Thornton and Brent Burns. So that's a pretty solid position for him to continue to be successful. Have you seen Brent Burns? He looks like Teen Wolf. I don't know what's going on with him. That beard, it's not the playoffs. It's 3 days in, and the beard has overtaken his face. Alexander Barkov, it's worth mentioning. He was number 3 overall pick this year. He scores a goal in his very first NHL game, and in doing so, I want to make sure I get the exact number right. He becomes one of the youngest players in NHL history to score an NHL goal. 18 years, 31 days. So the youngest player to score in a game in 70 years. Florida actually won the game. And then the next night, Sean Monahan of the Calgary Flames, 18 years and 357 days. So 2 young players there making an impact. We said it heading into the draft this year. It was supposed to be one of the best draft classes in at least 10 years, and really one of the better ones probably in the last 20 years. And Hertl is not from this year, but Barkov and Monahan and McKinnon all are. And Seth Jones, you mentioned he looked solid too.
I watched him the other night, and just you can see why he got picked.
So biased for defensemen.
He's so solid, and who's his D partner? Shea Weber.
Yeah, but again, he's in a position to keep succeeding.
Oh, just his decision making. It's just his vision. He's fun to watch. He really is.
Who's going to win Rookie of the Year this year?
McKinnon.
We never did these predictions. Yeah, okay.
I think.
Okay, that's fair.
Because I think he's surrounded with the most talent.
He is, but he's on the 3rd line. I mean, I guess he could easily move.
And
up.
how many points does he have?
3.
On the 3rd line?
Games? Yeah, no. I mean, he's probably the best of all these players. And Barkov could be a real good skill guy, but he's not really in the best situation to put up points as a rookie.
No, he's not.
So you might see kind of from him what we saw from Tarasenko.
Okay, so.
Yeah, you don't want to hear about Tarasenko?
Yeah, let's go.
I got nothing else. Go ahead.
Okay.
You just want to talk about the story.
I love this story that's coming next, folks,
okay.
So don't go away. It's so East Coast.
They're not going anywhere. There's no breaks.
It's so East Coast. Now, we all know the story of Philadelphia Eagle fans booing Santa Claus.
Yeah.
That's the mentality of the East Coast.
Hold on. That's the mentality of Philadelphia.
And then, you get cities like New York and New Jersey, and you looking at me, that type of bada bing, bada boom, all that stuff. So, the New Jersey.
Sure.
Yeah. Hello, Snooki. The Devils have a game the other night, and they score, which is what they're supposed to do, right? Yeah. The coach wants them to score.
They're not going to score a lot of goals this year either.
And everybody goes, yay, we score. Horn goes off. Music plays.
You know who scored, by the way, if I can just make a slight digression?
Sure.
Damian Brunner. He had 2 goals. The Devils have 3 goals. He has 2 of them.
Well, we talked about that.
That's all I ever talked about all summer.
And it's like, good for the Devils.
Yeah.
I wished he was somewhere else, but good for the Devils. So he scores, music plays, and the fans all have the deer in the headlight look. They're going, wait a minute, that's not our goal song, and they start booing it. Okay? Now remember, we're in New Jersey. The old goal song used to be Rock and Roll Part 2 by Gary Glitter.
Okay.
The new goal song
This is our house. These are my people, so this is my town. This is our house. Ain't nobody know we're gonna knock
is This Is Our House by Bon Jovi.
New
New Jersey natives, right?
Yes.
And they booed it. That's awesome.
It is funny. That's
It's
a tough
hilarious.
Crowd. That's
I mean,
a tough crowd.
It's like, now what do you do as ownership?
I make a statement. I trade one of my best players.
Do you leave it? Or you go back to the old song? You got 16,000 people booing it.
I think you give it another game. Well, you give it to the next goal.
What's going to be funny is they're going to boo it every time it plays.
Oh, that'll happen like 6 times this year with the offense they've put together. They're just not going to score a lot of goals. But I do like the acquisition of Damian Brunner. And I shouldn't make fun of the Devils just because they really got dealt just a tough hand with Parise leaving and then Kovalchuk retiring.
Mm-hmm.
Air quotes show up so well on podcasts, but that's what I was just doing. They didn't have a ton of offense, and they lose all of it in the last 2 years.
Right.
So they go out there and get
And then their fans boo their goal song.
Yeah.
Hey, we scored.
It's not
Hello.
Good enough. Not good enough anymore. And how about, I mean, if you want to talk about New Jersey, how about Corey Schneider starting the season opener, not Martin Brodeur?
Yeah, that was interesting.
They were playing Pittsburgh, so I don't know if they were just like, here you go, Corey. Marty doesn't want to play against Pittsburgh tonight. I don't know if that's what he got or what, but
Why would Marty do that?
because he doesn't want to face 8 guys who can score
Did
goals.
Marty look at the schedule and say, okay, I'm going to play this one, and this one?
He could if he wanted to. I mean,
He is
he owns every single NHL record.
Brodeur.
Quickly, before we wrap up,
Okay.
teams that have been impressive to you so far. For me, I mentioned Colorado. I mean, I don't think they can keep it up because they don't.
Okay, you're going to laugh. My first one, and I can only go by, the teams I've watched, but they haven't had a lot of success. But the Predators look good.
Okay.
I mean, I like what I see. They're 0-2,
Yeah.
I believe. But
I mean, they're winless. Your first impressive team doesn't have a win yet, but I'm not here to judge.
dude, it's not all about W's. It's about what I see.
It's an interesting philosophy.
Listen, man, you can have a good game and lose.
That is true. That is very true. And they're 2 games in. They could easily. I'm never going to pick against Barry Trotz and Pekka Rinne
That
or that
team,
defense.
you can't get more consistent than that team. And the thing that kills me about that team is that every year people are, national, oh, no, not national. They're always in the playoffs.
Yeah.
But anyways, they've impressed me. I haven't seen my team play a lot, even though they're 3-0.
Well, now you can't watch them because they're winning without you.
Oh, that's right.
Boston has looked.
I recorded it.
That game was like 2 days ago.
It was yesterday.
I'll tell you what happened.
I want to watch the pipe and drum open ceremony.
All right, you have fun with that.
That's history.
As they hoist the imaginary cup in Ontario. Detroit 2-1 on the year. They've been impressive. They're 1 loss to Boston. San Jose 2-0. They've looked really good in their first 2 games. But I will remind you, they started last year 7-0 and then lost 7 in a row. So before everybody hands the cup to San Jose, they are a very good team. We've talked about this in the past. It's a very pivotal season for them because Joe Pavelski and Logan Couture are taking over the team. Patrick Marleau and Joe Thornton. I don't know that they're both going to be back, unless they go really deep in the playoffs. St. Louis is the other one.
They're doing what they're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, they are. And St. Louis, a team that just beat Florida 7-0 last night. They could be tough this year. They look like a team that's on a mission. Again, it's just 2 games, but when you factor in the last 2 years how good they've looked, they're dangerous.
They've only given up 2 goals.
Yeah.
So far. I mean, it's only a couple of games, but they've only given up. Whereas the Stanley Cup champs, they've given up 7 goals and only scored 8.
Yeah, do you think Chicago wins the Stanley Cup again this year?
No.
It's not meant as a knock on Chicago. I just think it's
I
too
think
hard to do it.
It's one of the hardest things to do, is to repeat. When was the last repeat?
98.
98.
Chicago will obviously be very good. They may very well win the President's Trophy. They'll be one of the top seeds in the playoffs. I wouldn't want to play them in the playoffs. They'll probably win at least a series or two, but to actually win the Cup again, you could legitimately make a case for 15 teams that could win the Stanley Cup this year.
Mm-hmm.
St. Louis has been impressive just because they have the 11 goals through 2 games, and
Right.
10 different players have scored them. And that's the thing about St. Louis. The defense is getting stronger. They have 2 good goalies that seem to be able to work together well in tandem, and then they have just a bunch of different guys that aren't superstars, but that can score.
What about Edmonton?
I'm glad you brought them up because them in Philadelphia, I don't know. I mean, at some point you have to address goaltending, do you not? But Philadelphia, as I just said, Philadelphia, they just lost, so they're 0-3.
So they're on 3. Who started today?
Steve Mason.
Mason started today.
So he started twice. Ray Emery started once.
And Emery looked shaky in that game.
Yeah.
He didn't look,
Which is surprising.
which is very surprising.
And Mason got the start in game 1. I mean, they really are going with a timeshare, which I don't think works. In rare circumstances, it works.
Well, I don't know. I think a lot of times you determine your number one,
Which they haven't done.
but you determine your number one. Going into the season, I say it was Ray Emery.
Yes, so did I.
But again, he looked shaky. So, but you can't keep ping-ponging because now nobody's going to have any confidence. You got to roll with a guy, see if you can get his confidence going, and because you usually ride a goalie. If he's hot, you ride him, and then when he starts to cool off, you pull him out.
You know, the other thing with Philadelphia, they've played 3 games. They have 3 goals. So it doesn't really matter who's in net.
Yeah.
When you look at the firepower on that team, Vincent Lecavalier has looked good, at least through the first 2 games. For some reason, I watched the Flyers twice. You have Claude Giroux. You have Braden Shen. I mean, you have all these guys that should be able to score, and you have 3 goals in 3 games.
But isn't that the same problem with the Rangers?
Yeah, but I have a lot more confidence in the Rangers than I do in the Flyers, possibly because of Henrik Lundqvist in net, so he's going to steal them games.
Yeah.
And the Rangers' down year, they still won a playoff series last year. I mean, Philadelphia last year missed the playoffs. And here they are.
Very true, very
I
true.
thought for sure they would bounce back this year, and they still
Right.
very well might, but not a great start.
No.
Does that answer your question about Edmonton? Because I didn't
No.
say one thing
It
about
answered
the
my
Oilers.
non-question about Philadelphia.
Well, nice. The Oilers are in the same boat in that I don't think they've addressed goaltending, and I can't take them seriously until they have strong goaltending.
Yeah, and which is a shame because that team's so talented.
But because they're so talented and they've had so many number 1 overall picks, to me, the Oilers are a team. There's teams that are building to get into the playoffs, and the Oilers haven't been there in forever. But to me, they're building to get to the conference finals at some point. And if you're going to get there, you need a goalie.
Oh, absolutely. I've said it 1,000 times on this show that you start with your goalie and you work your way up. Absolutely. And could be a long season. I don't think so, just because I think their talent can win them a bunch of games. But you're right. If they're going to go deep, they're going to need some kind of goaltending.
You know who they need? Patrick Waugh.
He's with Colorado.
Oh, I understand.
Oh, okay. I'm just saying.
But it'd be fun. That's it for episode 19. Join us next week as we look at more of the evolving storylines around the National Hockey League.
And as we watch Coach Roy in Colorado and the fans in New Jersey to see if they can find their zen.
Wow. Plus whatever else happens in the next 7 days. Thanks for listening to the Hockey Podcast.